Let's start talking food and nutrition now. This is one of these things that I think is particularly, we'll say, engaging for a lot of you because this is something that matters so much for your everyday life. We spend a lot of time thinking about the delicious food we're going to eat. A lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about how they're going to try and lose weight, lose fat, gain muscle, whatever their goals may be. And frankly, just cooking and eating is a huge amount of fun. But it is also really important for the health of your body and making sure everything works. Now, that being said, turns out the nutritional requirements of humans are actually pretty flexible. We are able to eat an amazingly wide variety of foods and stay healthy, but there are a few things that really are solid bedrock. The first big thing we need to talk about: why do you need food to stay alive? Why is it necessary to eat in the first place? And there's two really big components to this. One is the matter, the physical stuff portion of food, and the other is the energy. Let's start by talking about the matter. So, matter is stuff. Everything that you can touch, everything that you breathe in, it's made of matter. And so that is here, the periodic table of the elements is how it's being represented. What matter do we need to stay alive? So that's a good question, actually. Nutrition can get really complicated. If you're really interested in nutrition and you want to learn more about it, there are entire nutrition classes that are offered by Everett that are really fascinating. Sustainable nutrition is a cool one. You actually get to grow your own food as part of that class. So if you've seen the garden in front of Whitehorse, the sustainable nutrition crew are the people who are actually growing that food. It's pretty amazing. So, anyway, I'm getting a little distracted. Let's talk about what matter is important. The first big category of matter that you need is the stuff that makes up the vast majority of your molecules. And we usually talk about that as being CHON. That is, it is carbon. Oops, let me draw that a little bit better there. So we've got carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Those four elements put together make up the vast majority of the stuff in your body, the stuff that makes you up fundamentally. But there's also a number of other elements that are important. Maybe not necessarily because they're the big building blocks. Well, rather, these building blocks are all quite tiny, but they're not the major constituents. They aren't necessarily the brick and mortar, but they're the other stuff that you still need to keep things functioning. The plumbing, the wiring, the windows, the wall paint. So, a thing that often is used as a mnemonic in the medical field is C. Hopkins cafe mug. So what is this? Let's break this down. And yes, I apologize, my handwriting is pretty bad. This is just my finger on my iPad, so it's not necessarily the highest fidelity. So C. Hopkins. C. Carbon again. H. Hydrogen. O. Oxygen. P. We have phosphorus. K, oops, let me actually do a different color for this. P, phosphorus, K, potassium, I, iodine, N is again our nitrogen. And then the cafe mug is referring to calcium, iron, and magnesium. These are the elements that are absolutely essential to have for a human to function correctly. And they do a lot of different jobs. That CHON, that's the vast majority of what makes up our body, the phosphorus and sulfur, sorry, I didn't circle that, the S, sulfur, those make up some of our nucleic acids and proteins. The iodine, magnesium, potassium, calcium, iron, these are necessary for things to function properly. They aren't the building blocks, but they're more of the, you can think of them as maybe plumbing, or hey, in our modern system, maybe it's the Ethernet connection. It's things that you need for the house to work properly, even though they aren't structural to it. And we all need food because we need to be made out of this stuff. Well, some of you may be saying, I'm not growing anymore. I am no longer, gaining in inches, putting on muscle mass. Why do I still need this stuff? You need it because not only do you need to grow, you need to repair. So an obvious example of this repair is you cut yourself, you scrape yourself. It is necessary for your body to create new cells and actually add to your body so that you can stay in good shape. But even more than that, simply living, wear and tear. And you can imagine some of this wear and tear. There's going to be mechanical wear down of parts, as it were, but also oxygen. I'm going to talk a lot about oxygen when we talk about respiration. Oxygen is hugely important, chemically speaking, for us to harvest energy from our food, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes here. But oxygen is hugely reactive. If you've seen things rust, or you've smelled oil that's gone rancid, this is oxygen reacting with molecules and changing them into a different form. That oil that goes rancid, or that caul that forms on the outside of butter where it changes clarity a bit, changes taste a little bit, that is the breakdown of those molecules occurring. You are made of molecules much like those. Like the butter that's sitting on your counter, you've got a lot of fats in you that are making up important parts of your cells. Oxygen reacts with those, it breaks them down, it makes them not the same thing anymore, and so your body has to replace those. It has to make new ones to repair the stuff that got damaged just by you existing and breathing. So you need to be taking in food all the time to make that repair happen, to keep your body in good condition, to keep everything going the way that it should. And more dramatically, growth and making reproduction, making more new organisms. And so we all started as this human egg plus a sperm cell, together about the size of the period on a Times New Roman 12 point sentence. Absolutely minuscule. We have grown to the size that we are. All of that food had to be taken in so that we could build ourselves up from a tiny thing. While we were gestating, while we were in the womb, that pregnant person who was carrying us had to take in all of those calories so that those could be digested, and all of those calories and molecules and building blocks could be shunted to the developing fetus. And then that baby and that child has to eat a huge amount of calories in order to build themselves. So you need matter to keep yourself functioning, to repair, to grow, to reproduce.